what? There were times this week where I didn't think the day would come, but after 2 days of postponements due to the rotten weather we've had here in the Tri-City area, we finally had basketball at Prescott and Bradshaw Mountain High Schools last night. Both teams got to host Elite 8 state tournament games, and the Prescott game, well, we carried it right here on KYCA all across the board. On the radio side at 1490 AM and 103.5 FM, online at kyca.info, live streamed on the KYCA Facebook page and on KYCA's Vimeo page. Turned out it was a rematch of last year's first round state tournament game as Prescott took on Mesquite, and man, oh man, did we have a packed house in the Dome. Unfortunately, it just wasn't Prescott's night. They struggled in the first quarter, just couldn't connect on their passes. They looked like they just had too many turnovers. Meanwhile, Mesquite, they just looked like they just couldn't miss. Every shot they put up seemed to fall in, especially this one guy, Cohen J. Gonzalez, Desert Sky Region Offensive Player of the Year. And, well, he showed why he got that award, because dude put up like 32 points last night. And Badgers fell in that game 78-61. So Mesquite moves on to the Final Four of state Monday. They host Deer Valley, the number 8 seed in the tournament, who actually knocked off number 1 seed ALA Gilbert North on Wednesday. And like I keep saying, at this point, you know what? Those seedings and rankings, they really don't mean a lot. We're to the point anyone can beat anyone in this tournament. So Mesquite, well, they still have a shot at winning back-to-back state championships. Now, Prescott, despite this loss, they certainly had a season they can be proud of. The first time since 1996 that they had a 20-win season. Also, and I found this out from the keeper of all Prescott sports knowledge, Kelly Cordes, last night, it was the first time that the Prescott boys basketball team hosted an Elite 8 state tournament game. One of the reasons for that is because I think it was up into the 80s or the 90s, all state tournament games were played at neutral sites. So a lot of accomplishments for this Prescott team this year. And you know what? They still have a bunch of talented guys coming back for next year. That includes Uriah Tannett, who was the Grand Canyon Region Offensive Player of the Year and overall Region Player of the Year. You had Zane Gall, Cooper Magnet, who really started coming on strong in the second half. So a really good core of guys coming back, and all 3 of those guys are sophomores. So Prescott boys basketball, they're going to be in pretty good shape for the next couple of years. Meanwhile, a much different story over at Bradshaw Mountain High School last night. It was a back and forth, neck and neck game all night long between the Bears and Cactus. In the fourth quarter, you had scores of 39-38 Bradshaw, 48-47 Cactus. Then with 30 seconds left to go in regulation, who comes through big time for the Bears? None other than the Wild Man, Ben Wilder. He got a slam dunk to put Bradshaw up by 1. The defense held off the forces of the Cobras, and they got the win 51-50. And man, that's another game I have got to put on my candidate list for Tri-City Sports Roundup Top 10 Local Games of the Year. So the Bears are now among the last 4 teams standing in the 4A conference, and this is the first time that I can remember Bradshaw Mountain being in the Final Four of state. It may have happened before I came to town. I really don't know. This is, like I said, this is the first time I can remember them making it this far in the state tournament. Either way, I mean, a heck of an accomplishment. So on Monday, Bradshaw Mountain will be at Peoria. Mesquite will host Deer Valley. The winners of those games will play next Thursday at 8 p.m. at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Phoenix for the 4A Conference State Championship. But that's not the only postseason basketball we have involving our local teams. Down at Bell Bank Park in Mesa tonight, the Embry Riddle women take on Benedictine Mesa in the opening round of the Cal Pac Conference Championship Tournament. The winner of that game, they face Simpson University on Monday, so good luck to both Bradshaw Mountain boys and the Embry Riddle women as they look to keep their seasons going. And if you want more postseason action to talk about, well, we've got the Embry Riddle Wrestling team. They finished 5th at the Cascade Collegiate Conference Championship Tournament last Saturday, which took place right here in Prescott. Carson Coy came away as the champion at 141 pounds. Probably had the soundbite of the week when I interviewed him after that, where he said, "I don't know how I got here, man." But, great job by Carson there. Cheeto Valley grad Keller Rock, he was the runner-up at 165 pounds. Jonah Chu and Beau Blackham, they finished 3rd at 149 and 157 pounds, respectively. So they're heading to Wichita, Kansas next week for the NAIA National Tournament, and 3 other Embry Riddle wrestlers will be joining there. That's Landon Smith, Sheldon Cole, and Michael Densmore. And we'll be talking more Embry Riddle Wrestling on the other side of the break, as in the studio with me today, I have Coach KC Rock, along with Keller Rock and Beau Blackham. So we'll be talking about the recent conference tournament. We'll be talking about nationals, a few other things. So 928-541-1016, number to call here on the Tri-City Sports Roundup. Again, 928-541-1016. Thank you for joining us this morning here on the radio side, 1490 AM and 103.5 FM, online at kyca.info. And we're also live streaming this on the KYCA Facebook page. Be sure to follow us there, and also follow us on KYCA's other social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, Vimeo. Don't forget about our YouTube channel, KYCA Digital, where you can watch episodes of my podcast, Rust Rants, and you can also check out shorts from some of our previous Prescott basketball live streams. All right, folks, break time here on the Tri-City Sports Roundup again. When we come back, we're going to be talking Embry Riddle Wrestling with Coach KC Rock and 2 of his grapplers, Keller Rock and Beau Blackham. We'll be back right after this. Hey folks, welcome back here to the Tri-City Sports Roundup. It is wrestling day here on the Roundup. Joining me in the studio, I have Coach KC Rock of the Embry Riddle Wrestling team, along with 2 of his grapplers, Keller Rock and Beau Blackham. Guys, good morning. Thanks for joining us here in the studio.
Morning.
Morning, John.
All right, so Coach, let me start with you. Of course, last week you had the Cascade Collegiate Conference Championship Tournament right here in Prescott. You guys were hosting. Well, before we get to how Riddle performed there, just talk about all the work it took for you and the rest of the Embry Riddle athletic staff to put something like this together, because when you're hosting it, you're not just concentrating on what your guys going to be doing on the mat. You got a lot of other issues that you got to address too.
Yeah, there's a few more things to it. We host a tournament every fall, which kind of falls mostly on my shoulders. So it's kind of me doing all the setup, and which I'm kind of one of those guys that almost would rather do it than try to rely on somebody else, just so I know it gets done. But so running tournaments isn't anything new to what we do at Embry Riddle. But when you're hosting the conference tournament, there's certain parameters that have to be followed. There's certain things that have to be done to take care of the conference thing. So there's a little bit more involved as far as that goes. Another thing, it's a different budget. It's more athletic department budget than it is wrestling budget that puts this on. So obviously, you're involving more the athletic director and those types of things to help, pay for the certain things. But yeah, we're, like I said, tournaments aren't new to us at the school. We do one every year, but definitely a little bit different. And it's different for the guys because, one of the big things I think is a difference is, when we go to the conference tournament outside of Embry Riddle, we're at a hotel. We go get our last workout of the night. I go to the seating meeting. Seating meeting gets over. We have everybody come to my room, whatever. We kind of talk about the seating meeting and kind of get our last little talk in before the tournament gets going. And when you host it, we finished working out at, I think, 5 o'clock, 5:30. Seating meetings at 6. It gets over at 8, and then we got to kind of have all the guys come back to the room, for kind of a team meeting. So that's that's the one thing with me that I don't always like hosting the tournament, is it kind of takes us out of a routine. I actually was gonna get a hotel room for everybody, so we were kind of all together, but there was too much going into town, and hotels were hard to find, and they were at a premium last weekend, so we just kind of did it the way we've done it. But yeah, it's a good time. It's different, but fun.
Yeah. And, of course, the thing with the Cascade Collegiate Conference, and we've talked about this before, probably one of the toughest conferences in the entire nation when it comes to the NAIA, because I think in the last NAIA national poll, 5 Cascade Collegiate Conference teams were ranked in the top 20. Embry Riddle, I believe, came in at number 18. And, Coach, I think you were telling me that if you extend it to a top 25 national poll, there'd be 2 more Cascade Collegiate Conference teams on that poll.
Yeah. All year there's been, 5, 6 in the top 20, and then 2 more hanging out in the top 25. So we've had anywhere from 7 to 8 teams in the top 25, and definitely the most competitive conference in the country. It's just from top to bottom. It's just really competitive. When we go to the seeding meeting after the conference tournament, I see, well, this guy lost, and this is in other conferences. Oh, medical forfeited here, whatever, and but no real upsets. You come to our tournament, and it starts right off the bat with guys getting upset, high seeds falling, which makes the backside and consolation bracket a mess. Mm-hmm. And then, you're trying to get in there for qualifying spots. We had the most qualifiers of any conference in the country. We ended up, after the at-larges, we ended up with 58 qualifiers, and then I think there was 3 guys that are sitting they're waiting for a phone call right now to be the alternate. So yeah, definitely the most guys going to the national tournament. So
yeah. So Keller, we talked about how the Cascade Collegiate Conference is the toughest in the country, and probably in that Cascade Collegiate Conference, your weight class, 165, that is certainly no easy road. I think in the interview I did with you afterwards, you said that, of the top 8 spots in the nation at 165 pounds, 4 of those spots went to guys in the CCC, including yourself. And, you can certainly attest to how tough your weight class was in that conference championship.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough weight. Like you said, we got four guys inside the top 8 are in our conference, so it's always – duels are always going to be fun. Conference tournaments always going to be fun. Like, just having that competitive and tough wrestling gets you better and prepares you for the national tournament, because you're not going to have a not tough match out at national tournament. So definitely having a tough conference tournament helps you prepare for nationals. So.
Mm-hmm. And I know during the interview, and obviously, you were gunning. Obviously, you're gunning for that conference championship. Mm-hmm. Came up short there, but the one thing you were telling me about that is, it's like, it's like, yeah, it's always a disappointment, but I think this is one of the really good lessons in sports when things don't go your way. It's like, yeah, you get upset for a minute or two, but then you just pick yourself up, move on, and just say, well, hey, this is a learning experience.
Yeah, I would definitely walked away and let my frustration out for a couple minutes, and then accepted it and didn't take it as a loss anymore, and did a learning experience. Went and talked to Shay and my dad, and had a good coaching and learning experience from it, and hopefully can change some things that need to be changed and be ready for nationals. So definitely got to learn from it instead of be upset about it.
And Beau, I guess same situation for you. You placed 3rd in your weight class, 157 pounds, and I imagine that 157, that was also a pretty tough weight class for Cascade Collegiate Conference as well, because I know you're ranked pretty high in that weight class. Sure, there are a few other people in that weight class in the conference right up there in the top 10, top 15.
Yeah, it was a tough way. Still not frustrated about the loss in the semifinals, but it's just very uncharacteristic of me to lose that way. And so that's, like Keller said, that's just something you've got to take going into the national tournament and know, hey, I can't do that again. Kind of something like that. Just stay in good position at all time, because, like you said, it is tough. Even some of those kids that aren't ranked in our conference probably would be in other conferences. You just got to stay in good position the entire time, and that's one of the biggest things of wrestling. So, yeah, it's a tough tournament. It's mentally tough. It's physically tough. Like Coach Rock said, the tournament's so deep. It's some of these other guys in other conferences, it's almost like they get a weekend off kind of a thing before, where we're going through almost a mini national tournament. So, but yeah, we're taking whatever you can out of those losses and bringing them into nationals. Whatever good things we can take from those losses. So.
Yeah, and kind of like I was talking with Keller, and I think maybe wrestling out of most sports is really good for life lessons like that, because I'm sure, like many times in your career, because I think you were a 3-time state finalist when you were in Utah for high school, and obviously things didn't go your way in some of those matches. To kind of take us through that process when you're up there on the big stage, things don't go through your way. Things don't go through your way. Like, how long does it take to kind of settle down and say, okay, you know what, things didn't go my way, but hey, that's life. You got to look at it as a learning experience and move on.
Yeah, for me, like my high school, it's been a long time since then, but for me in high school, I always wanted to be, Utah has, and when I was going through it, had 5 different classifications, but I always wanted to be the number 1 guy in the entire state. And luckily for me, or unlucky for me, I did have the number 1 guy in the entire state in my weights those years. And we purposely went into those weights, cut or went up to try to chase those guys. And yeah, it was a hard life lesson. You come off the mat losing that match, and then you'd see other kids in other classifications that were state champions that you had beaten pretty badly or whatever. And it was a hard pill to swallow. It was hard, some of those losses I took in high school, hard pills to swallow. And it's just, like you said, as a life lesson, you have to just take what you can and whatever's the next best thing. And I think there was 1 year in there where I didn't make the state finals, and I just wanted to leave. I just didn't want to even be there. And I had to come back and wrestle. Our team was battling for a state title that year, and that's kind of how I had to look at it. The conference tournament was, I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want to, after you lose, you especially not in the final, trying to have to battle back through the consolation bracket. But sometimes you got to gut it up and just get what's the next best thing. So.
And Coach, for yourself, when it comes to the recruiting process, obviously you're looking at more than just wins and losses for these guys. I think like what we're hearing from Keller and Beau, you're also looking for attitude. And I know I've talked to a lot of other college coaches. I've heard interviews with a lot of other college coaches. And, they say specifically sometimes when they go recruit someone, they're not looking at, this guy has this great technique, this guy has that great technique. They're looking at their attitude and what happens when things don't go their way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're watching them at bigger tournaments. The state tournament is part of it, but it's not, I'm going to say if you're divided into percentages of 100, the state tournament might be 30% of what you're looking at. You're looking at some other things that, how did they do at the big tournaments? How did they respond at the big tournaments? Because a lot of these guys they're used to being good. They're used to winning all the time, which is what you're looking for as well. And so, but they go to a big tournament and they might get knocked off by somebody. So how do they respond in the consolation bracket? How do they carry themselves after the mat? I'm not necessarily looking for a guy that, gets beat and smiles as he walks off the mat, because, I'm kind of the guy, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. So I want that fire to be in there. I want him to be a little bit mad. Obviously you don't want him to go overboard and throw tantrums and stuff like that, but I want them to have that grit in their teeth and be angry that they lost, and because that's what drives you and it makes you better. And so, you're looking at those types of things. You're looking at their attitude, how they come back, how they conduct themselves. How do they react to their coaches? Are they willing to take the criticism? Are they willing to take the comments from a coach after a hard loss? Some of them need 5 minutes, and that's okay. But do they go find their coach afterwards? Keller needs a couple minutes. Beau needs a couple minutes, and then they actually come and find us, and then we talk about the matches. So that's a lot of it. It's just attitude and being able to come back and being gritty and tough and a little mean at times, and so.
Okay. All right, folks. Well, joining me on the show today, I have Coach K.C. Rock from the Embry Riddle Wrestling team. He brought two of his grapplers to the studio with him today. That's Keller Rock and Beau Blackham. And we're talking about Cascade Collegiate Conference Tournament Championship, which we had last weekend. Coming up next week in Wichita, Kansas, it's the NAIA National Tournament. So we'll be talking a little more about that and a few other things with these guys when on the other side of the break. But as always, before we go to break, it's time to see who's shined over the past 7 days as we present the Tri-City Sports Roundup 3 stars of the week. Starting with the ladies, our number 3 star is Zakira King of the Embry Riddle basketball team. Excuse me. She garnered 20 points in the Lady Eagles' 63-56 victory over St. Catherine last Friday. The number 2 star is Kashaya Anderson of the Yavapai College basketball team. She posted 21 points in the Lady Riders' 81-57 triumph over South Mountain last Saturday. And our number 1 star of the week is Sadie Allred of the Yavapai College basketball team. She notched 27 points in the Lady Riders' 81-57 triumph over South Mountain last Saturday. Now for the guys, our number 3 star is, well, sitting right across from me here in the studio. It's Keller Rock of the Embry Riddle Wrestling team. He was the runner-up at 165 pounds at last Saturday's Cascade Collegiate Conference Championship Tournament. The number 2 star is Cody Hanna of the Prescott Wrestling team. He was the runner-up at 195 pounds at last Saturday's Division III State Tournament. And our number 1 star of the week is Carson Coy of the Embry Riddle Wrestling team. He was the Cascade Collegiate Conference champion at 141 pounds at last Saturday's conference tournament. Congratulations to all of our 3 stars of the week. Break time here on the Roundup. We'll have more with Coach K.C. Rock, Keller Rock, and Beau Blackham of the Embry Riddle Wrestling team right after this. Hey folks, welcome back to the Tri-City Sports Roundup. John Rust with me here in the studio with me today. I have K.C. Rock, coach for the Embry Riddle Wrestling team, along with Keller Rock and Beau Blackham, 2 of his grapplers. And well, as always, you know what time it is. We come back from break here. We got to find out a little more about some of the members of the Embry Riddle Wrestling team. So let's do a little lightning round thing here. Actually, I don't think I prepped these 2 guys for lightning round, so it's going to be interesting to see what their answers are going to be. So, Keller, I'm going to start with you. Who on the Embry Riddle Wrestling team would you say is the best dressed guy? Who is the sharp dressed man for the Eagles?
I would probably have to give that one to probably Stone or Sheldon. They're the most, I think, fancy dressers.
Okay, so Beau, who is the funniest guy on Embry Riddle? The guy that just keeps you all laughing?
I think a close second behind me would have to be, I don't know, maybe I like Alan. Alan's kind of funny. I don't know, but that's probably a close second behind me.
Okay, so Keller, opposite end. Who's probably the most serious guy on Embry Riddle?
Most serious guy? That's a good question. I think, I don't know.
Boy, that's a tough one,
Yeah,
huh?
I don't, it's hard to say we don't have any serious guys in the team, but a lot, most of us are pretty enlightened moods, but I don't know. I would say Carson can be funny at times, but I would say the one that keeps his head down the most and is kind of the quiet and serious one would probably have to be Carson, but he can also be pretty funny at times.
So he can kind of do the split personality thing then.
Yeah, depends on what you get from him.
Okay, so Beau, who is the most talkative guy on Embry Riddle Wrestling?
It's definitely Garrett Branson. Well, he might not be the most talkative. He's definitely the loudest, though, in there.
All right, so Keller, on the opposite end, who's probably the quietest guy on Embry Riddle?
The quietest? Probably Jose. He doesn't say much. I mean, he works decently hard, and I think he's probably the quietest on the team.
Okay, now this should be an interesting one when it comes to wrestlers. So Beau, who is the guy on Embry Riddle who can eat the most in one sitting?
Again, that's definitely Garrett Branson.
Well, he's the heavyweight, so
Yeah.
I guess
You hang out with him and you're eating breakfast, pre-breakfast, after breakfast meals. all that. So
Now I'm getting flashbacks to Lord of the Rings. Okay, we've had breakfast, but what about second breakfast? Or I guess with him, I guess it goes with third and fourth breakfast.
that's Garrett.
Oh, man. So anyway, Coach, coming up next weekend, you guys are in Wichita, Kansas for the NAIA National Tournament. You're taking 7 of your guys with you for that. And, what are some of the, going back to past national tournaments, what are some of the things you do to prep your guys for getting on the big stage there?
We've done, we do a lot of, just kind of thinking about it in practice and going through the mental stuff. We try to put them in situations where they have to, because it's hard to replicate. You can't really, music's always playing in the room, but you can't replicate competition really. The anxiety part of it. So it's just kind of trying to get them to go through a mental process of, okay, you're down by 1 point. There's 30 seconds left in the match. What's going to be your takedown? What's going to be, how are you going to get off the bottom? So it's just kind of replicating to make them kind of mentally think about things they're going through. We kind of try to keep the, this is, I think we talked about earlier on the show. This is the 4th year it's been in Wichita. 3rd one we've been able to wrestle in because of the COVID year and when we canceled that season. So, just trying to kind of keep a routine. We land in the airplane, we go to lunch, we go back to the hotel, we go work out. So just keep things familiar with them so it's not a big change for them. One thing on your notes, the Falcon invite is out there every year. We've gone to that the past couple years just to kind of, maybe for some of our younger guys, I think maybe that's going to be beneficial to guys like Landon and Carson and Jonah that haven't been to this arena. Them being able to wrestle in it, have some success. Landon won the tournament. He came out as a freshman, his first tournament of the year, knocks off like the number 8 ranked guy in the country at the tournament, wins the tournament. So he's probably got some really good feelings going back into Wichita. Like, okay, I know I can wrestle in this arena. So just kind of trying to keep it familiar and more of a routine for the guys.
Okay, and Keller, of course, you've been to nationals before, so talk about what that atmosphere is like. Because I would imagine that the place where you're going, I believe it's the Hartman Arena. It's called. I believe that's kind of similar to what we would have here at Findlay Toyota Center, right?
Yeah, it's definitely just the big arena feel. It can be a lot more serious and a lot more game time than other tournaments throughout the year. So it's definitely a different feeling, but just trying to think of it as just another match, another tournament, and have fun. So just trying to.
And Beau, you've been there before, of course. So just talk about what your approach is coming into the national tournament, and how you and your teammates try not to be overwhelmed, because there could be a thing of, wow, this is it, this is the big stage, man. It's do or die here. So talk about the approach that you guys take not to get overwhelmed by these circumstances.
I think like Coach Rock said, the Falcon invite's nice, especially for some of the younger guys to go in and actually wrestle in that arena. I think we actually have a pretty laid-back group of younger guys coming with us that they do a really good job at not being overwhelmed. Like guys like Carson, who's just, man, I'm just happy to be here kind of a thing. And Jonah, same thing. Jonah's very laid back. They just go out and wrestle each match. They don't really care about wins or losses or any of that. And I think the national tournament it can be a little intimidating, but at the same time, I think a lot of us and some of the younger guys especially are just excited to go out and see what they can do on the national level. So.
Okay. And, Keller, getting back to you here. Obviously a lot of people know about your wrestling accomplishments here in the area. You were a 3-time state champion over at Chino Valley High School. I think you won state championships in 3 different weight classes, or just 2 when you were there?
3 different, yep.
Okay. But probably what a lot of people may not realize is that you also had a pretty darn good golf career over at Chino Valley. So tell us how you fell into playing golf and joining the Cougar golf team under Coach Boehm.
I love golf. I think if I wasn't wrestling, I'd be playing golf. But it's definitely fun. I still do it all the time. And I think mainly I went out just to kind of have fun, and it kind of turned into taking it a little bit more serious. But I still still golf quite a bit now. I'm taking a little break while wrestling's going on right now, but I still golf a lot with my dad and with friends. So it's something I'll do for the rest of my life for sure. So definitely fun to do it in high school.
Yeah. So do you go out with some of the players from the Embry Riddle men's or women's golf team and just shoot some rounds with them, or what?
Actually, I never have. I don't know really any of them. I might come buddies with a couple of them and play with them this summer, maybe learn a few things. But as of now, I haven't actually ever been out with any of the Embry Riddle team. So.
Yeah. And, we've talked about, because I've talked about this when it comes to multi-sport athletes, how sometimes it's good to play another sport besides your main sport, just to give you kind of a mental break. And do you find that's true when it comes to golf? Because, again, wrestling is your primary sport, but do you feel like when you're out there on the golf course, you can just kind of put that aside and just kind of relax a little bit?
So they're actually, it is fun to go out there and just relax, but if you going and playing more of a serious round, I think it does actually, the mental state of it translates very well into wrestling, because if you hit a bad shot or a shot you couldn't hit, you have to throw that away, the anger and frustration from that bad shot away, and go make another good shot. And kind of like in wrestling, if you get taken down or you give up points, you have to throw that away real quick and go score the next point. You can't let that point or bad shot haunt you the rest of the round or the rest of the match. So it definitely helps mentally of letting go of bad things very quickly, because you got a minute or two to let go of a bad shot to hit a good shot, your next shot in golf. So it's definitely, your turnaround time's got to be pretty quick on letting something bad go and coming and getting the next best thing.
Okay. So, Beau, you're from Vernal, Utah, and people who know me know that I have a humongous interest in the paranormal, in cryptids, in UFOs. I'm not going to call them UAPs. To me, they're UFOs. And Vernal, Utah, that is actually about 20, 30 miles away from Skinwalker Ranch, which is probably the biggest paranormal hotspot in the United States. And that was actually a place where you and some of your friends would go and, well, you would hang out near it. So tell us about that.
Yeah, sometimes on the weekends we would get, me and a couple of my buddies would get girls that we would ask on dates, and our date would be, let's pile us all in the bed of the truck, and we'd drive out there, and as far as they would let us go, and you'd get this eerie feeling. It's the middle of the night, it's gated around there, and you usually have stray dogs running around there barking and stuff that makes it even a little bit creepier. And we would get as far as they'd let us go, and then you'd have usually an FBI agent actually would be guarding the main gate there, and he'd spotlight us, and he was usually a pretty good sport about it. He'd be like, all right, guys, you guys had your fun, turn around, go back home. But it was always something, it was kind of fun we'd do on the weekends.
And I think I talked to you about this last year, and you said you never saw any of, say, the weird lights or any cryptid sightings or anything, but like you said, it's just an overall eerie feeling of that place.
Yeah, it definitely was an eerie feeling when you'd come on there. And I don't know if that's, like you said, due to its reputation, so you go in there with already kind of mixed feelings, or if it's really an eerie place, you never know. It's definitely weird that they had it guarded, so that was played a part of it too. So, yeah, you go out there and it's a kind of an eerie feeling. It's definitely weird.
Yeah. And, before we went on the air, you were telling me about a story involving your brother-in-law, who's an electrician up there in Vernal, and he actually did some work there at Skinwalker Ranch, and, had, I guess, a kind of an interesting experience with that.
Yeah, he had to go change a few outlets and stuff like that, and before they let him even remotely close to the property, he had about a book worth of paperwork he had to sign, and non-disclosure agreements about how he wouldn't talk about anything he saw out there or anything like that. And he's a pretty good man, and I've asked him, I don't know how many times, if he did see anything creepy or anything like that out there, and he says, well, even if I did, I couldn't talk about it. So...
And the other cool thing about Vernal is, well, along with being in close proximity to Skinwalker Ranch, one of your big, I guess, sightseeing things is Dinah the Pink Dinosaur, the welcome sign there. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it's been there long before I was in Vernal. So, and just recently, I know the community, it was starting to fall apart, and the community came through and put some money together and refurbished it, and it's a big sign. And there's a couple actually little dinosaurs scattered throughout the whole town that people paint different colors during the different times of year, or they'll put a Christmas hat on the pink dinosaur. There's a green dinosaur in the middle of town that they'll dress up as the Grinch sometimes, or stuff like that. So
cool. And well, Coach, we got a few minutes left to go here. I know, like at the start of the year when I did my preseason interviews with you and the guys, I guess, I don't know if concern would be the right word, but this was certainly a pretty young team that you had, going into the season. Maybe not too much experience wrestling at the collegiate level. Now that you look back on the season here, as you're on the verge of the national tournament, do you feel this team maybe exceeded your expectations for this year?
I think in some respects, I think as any coach goes through the year, there's, especially in an individual sport, there's some disappointments and there's some excitement about it. I look at, I'm disappointed in a couple guys that didn't get qualified that I thought should be there, or I thought had the ability to be at the national tournament. So disappointed in those things. But yeah, as far as the young guys go, I mean, we're taking 7 guys to the national tournament, and 5 of them will be back with us next year, and so that's exciting. We had 3 first-year guys. Really, Jonah's a sophomore, but didn't spend a lot of time last year in the lineup as a new guy, just because he was in Beau's weight and some weights in there. So, we had 2 true freshmen that qualified, and then Jonah is a first-year kind of in the lineup. So excited about those 3 guys, and the growth that they've made throughout the year. So having 5 guys come back is exciting, not just for this year, but for next year.
Yeah. And Keller, talk about what you foresee for Riddle next year, because like Coach said, 5 of those qualifiers, including yourself, will be back. You also have a few other really good young guys there. So talk about how much you're looking forward to seeing what Embry Riddle can do next year.
I think just keeping the success and momentum we've had from this year rolling into next year, and kind of keep doing the same thing, going out and having fun. Mm-hmm. So I think just keeping it rolling from this year.
Yeah. So Beau, I believe you're graduating after this year. So looking at what you see from Riddle, the guys they have coming back for next year, do you feel you're leaving this program in pretty darn good shape?
Definitely, yeah. Like I said earlier, the younger guys are really laid back, which is a good thing, but when they need to be, they're not too at the same time. So when it comes down to it, when they have to wrestle, they're focused and sharp, but at the same time, they don't let pressure get to them very often. They don't let frustrations get to them very often, and they're overall just positive, which is something nice to see out of some young guys. Just have a positive attitude overall and just focus on wrestling. So I think it'll be good in the next couple of years.
Okay, and then Coach, like I said, next Friday you're in Wichita, national tournament. When you look at the weight classes that your guys are going to be competing in, if you could pick maybe 1 or 2 you think are going to be the toughest weight classes for them, what do you think it's going to be?
Well, I think everybody's going to have. We've got some guys seated. Keller's 5, Beau's 11, Michael Densmore's seated 11. So those guys are going to get, an unseeded guy first round. That doesn't mean much sometimes, as we found out at our conference tournament, and then what we find out every year at the national tournament. You've got to be ready for 6 hard matches if that's what it takes to be an All-American, and maybe only 4 if you can get to the finals. But yeah, tough. Everybody's got seeded guys. They're all pretty tough. I think our young guys are not seeded. So they're going to have to step up, and if they want to get their name on the board and be start their career as a 4-time All-American, they're going to have to beat somebody that's seated above them, and and really for all the guys, we don't have any number 1 seeds, and so I think everybody on our team has illusions of being an All-American, and which is what you have to have, but even a guy like Beau, who's been an All-American before, he's going to have to beat somebody seated above him at some point in the tournament, whether it's on the championship side of the bracket or the consolation side of the bracket, to stand on that podium. Okay. And they all have goals of being in the finals. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, folks, we're coming up to the end of the show. So I want to thank Coach Casey Rock and Keller Rock and Beau Blackham from the Embry Riddle Wrestling team for joining us here this morning on the show. Again, guys, thanks for coming in this morning. I know for college students, waking up like early on a Saturday morning is kind of tough. Been there, done that. When I was in school, I'd be like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Too early to get up. So, guys, thanks for coming in today. And, hey, best of luck at the national tournament in Wichita next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, folks, that is going to do it for another episode of the Tri-City Sports Roundup. As always, thank you very much for joining us here on the show. And, of course, along with Embry Riddle Wrestling, best of luck to the Bradshaw Mountain boys basketball team who will be in the Final Four of state Monday versus Peoria. And best of luck tonight to the Embry Riddle women's basketball team who are in the first round of the Cal-Pac tournament down in Mesa, taking on Benedictine Mesa. Oh, by the way, Benedictine Mesa, that is where former Prescott basketball player Teresa Gutierrez is playing right now. But folks, thanks again for joining us. Have yourselves a great day.